at 9. This Sunday, the 12th of May 2024. Economic resurgence. Sri Lanka confident of recovering from bankruptcy by year end. President Ranil Wickremesinghe asks all political parties to support as government expects to convert agreements with IMF and bilateral creditors into laws. Easing of restrictions. State Minister of Finance promises to relax vehicle import restrictions systematically in the coming year. Rethink. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa concerned that the hasty divestiture of state-owned assets will not produce the best outcomes for the country. Calls for the halting of SOE privatization. SLFP saga. Former SLFP chairman Maithripala Sirisena, who lost his chairmanship following an interim injunction, formally tenders his resignation. Ahead of time. Tourist arrivals surpassed the 800,000 milestone 2 months earlier than last year.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. With Indiva.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. With Indiva Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us this Sunday on Derana 24. We're once again back with the very latest on your developments from across Sri Lanka and here at home. We start off with the latest development, of course, from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Former President Maithripala Sirisena today announced his resignation from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party chairmanship and the executive committee of the party. Following his resignation, Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa was unanimously appointed as the new chairman of SLFP during an executive committee meeting. However, expressing views on these new appointments, Minister Nimal Siripal de Silva's faction of the SLFP said that the appointments and the executive committee meeting held today were not legal.
Internal conflicts within the Sri Lanka Freedom Party peaked when an interim injunction was issued to former President Maithripala Sirisena by the Colombo District Court, preventing him from functioning as the chairman of the SLFP. Against this backdrop, Minister Nimal Siripal de Silva was appointed as the SLFP's acting chairman during a political meeting held under the patronage of senior advisor of the SLFP, former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. The crisis further escalated when former President Maithripala Sirisena's faction appointed Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa to the same role. However, Justice Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa was temporarily barred from holding the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's acting chairmanship by way of an interim injunction issued by the Colombo District Court. Meanwhile, during an executive committee meeting of the SLFP, former President Maithripala Sirisena resigned from his role as chairman of the SLFP and from the executive committee of the party. Subsequently, the executive committee of the SLFP unanimously voted to appoint Justice Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa as the new chairman of the party. Additionally, Attorney at Law Kirti Udawatha was appointed as the acting general secretary of the SLFP by former President Maithripala Sirisena's faction of the SLFP.
ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම අද ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය විදියට ඓතිහාසික වූ වැදගත් දවසක්. විධායක සභාව නීත්‍යානුකූලව කැඳවුවේ මට වර්ණයෝගයක් තිබීම නිසා පක්ෂයේ වැඩ කටයුතු ක්‍රියා කිරීමේ අපහසුතාවයක් තිබෙනවා, බාධාවන් තිබෙනවා. ඒ තුල පක්ෂයටත් අසාධාරණයක් සිදු වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා පාක්ෂිකයින්ට ඉදිරි මැතිවරණයට ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න සිටින සියලුම අපේක්ෂකවරුන්ට සාධාරණයක් ඉෂ්ට කිරීම සඳහා මම තීරණය කළා ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ සභාපති ධූරයෙන් අද ඉල්ලා අස්වෙන්නට. නව සභාපතිවරයා වශයෙන් ඒකමතිකව ජනාධිපති නීතිඥ ආචාර්ය විජේදාස රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා සභාව විසින් පත් කරගත්තා. මම සභාපති ධූරයෙන් ඉවත් වුණත් මම පක්ෂයේ කටයුතු වලින් ඉවත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
විධායක සභාව ඒකමතිකව තීරණයක් ගත්තා ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ සභාපතිවරයා වශයෙන් මාව පත් කරන්න කියලා. ඉදිරියේ පවත්වීමට නියමිත සෑම මැතිවරණයකින්ම ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය මුල් වෙලා එන දේශපාලන බලවේගයකට මේ රටේ දේශපාලන බලය ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වෙනුවෙන් අපි කැප වෙලා කටයුතු කරනවා.
දැන් ඔබතුමාට වාරණයක් තියෙද්දි ඔබතුමා කොහොමද සභාපති වෙන්නේ?
වාරණේ තියෙන්නේ වැඩවලන සභාපති තනතුර දරන්න එපයි කියලා. ඒක නිසාද ස්ථිර සභාපති තනතුර ලැබුණා.
අනිත් පාර්ශව කියන්න පුළුවන් කැඳවීම නීති විරෝධී කියන.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ පාර්ශව නැහැ. එක පාර්ශවයයි ඒ පාර්ශවයේ සියලු දෙනාද මෙතෙන්ට ආවා. 10 දිනකට වැඩි අඩු ප්‍රමාණයක් වෙනත් මතයක් දරනවා. අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා ඉදිරියේදී ඒගොල්ලෝ අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා එක ගමනක් යන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි.
Concurrently, Minister Nima Siripal De Silva's faction of the SLFP called a news briefing this afternoon at the party headquarters.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ වැඩබලන සභාපතිවරයා විදිහට කටයුතු කරන්නේ නිමල් සිරිපාල් සිල්වා මැතිතුමා. ඉතින් එම නිසා විශේෂයෙන් මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශයන් පිළිබඳව ඔබටත් රටටත් අමුතුවෙන් සඳහන් කරන්න අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ. හෙට උදේ කොහාට හරි ගිහිල්ලා මොනවා කියයිද කියලා කවුරුවත් දන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතාමත් කනගාටුදායක කරුණ තමයි අධිකරණ අමාත්‍යවරයා විදිහට මේ ආකාරයෙන් කටයුතු කිරීම ඉතිහාසයේ කිසිම යුගයක අධිකරණ අමාත්‍යවරයෙකුගෙන් නොසිදුණු දෙයක්.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ තනතුරුවල වෙනසක් අද දිනේදී නීත්‍යානුකූල මට්ටමින් කිසිදු අයුරකින් සිද්ධ වුණේ නැහැ. වාරණයට ලක්වෙච්ච පිරිසක් විසින් තමයි අද දිනේත් අනීතිකව තවත් රැස්වීමක් කැඳවලා ඒ වාරණයට ලක්වෙච්ච පුද්ගලයන්වම නැවත වතාවක් යම් යම් තනතුරු වලට පත් කරගත්තයි කියන ප්‍රචාරයක් තමයි අපිට ලැබුණේ.
මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඉවත් උනායි කියලා බිල වශයෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. ඒතකොට ඒතුමාගේ ඉවත් වීම ඔබතුමාලා පිළිගන්නවද?
මේ කාරණා සිද්ධ වුණේ කොහොමද කියන කාරණේ පිළිබඳ අපි දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අපිට ඒ පිළිබඳව යමක් ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ.
ඒක ඉවත් වීම පිළිගන්නත් බැරිද?
රැස්වීම අනීතිකයි. මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන මැතිතුමා නීත්‍යානුකූලව අයින් විය යුතුයි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ පාක්ෂිකයෙක් නොවන පොදුජන පෙරමුණේ පාක්ෂිකයෙක්ව ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ සභාපතිවරයා විදිහට නම් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේක එදා බණ්ඩාරනායක මහත්තයා ඝාතනය කරාට වඩා ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ සමූල ඝාතනයක් මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන මහත්තයා කරලා තියෙනවා. විජේදාස මහත්තයන් ඇහුවේ නැද්ද ඒක?
එතුමා කියන්නේ සමාජීත්වය අරන් තියෙනවා.
එහෙනම් මම එතුමාට ඉතින් ඉදිරියේදී පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවනේ. එතුමා මේ පක්ෂෙන් ඉවත් වෙනවා කියන ලිඛිත ලිපියක් පොදුජන පෙරමුණට ලබා දීලා පොදුජන පෙරමුණෙන් අපිට කියන්න වෙනවා දැන් විජේදාස රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා පොදුජන පෙරමුණේ සමාජිකයෙක් නෙවෙයි කියන ලිඛිත ලේඛනයත් එක්ක තමයි එතුමාට ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ නිල වශයෙන් සමාජිකත්වයේ සඳහා ඉල්ලුම් කරන්න පුළුවන්කමක් ලැබෙන්නේ.
ජීවිතේ හැම තැනකදීම ස්මාර්ට් වෙන්න පොලිය විතරක් ගෙවාගෙන යන්න CDB Smart Draft.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe says the government will present all conditions with the International Monetary Fund and the external creditors to Parliament to be passed into law after formalising agreements with the external creditors. Joining a celebration of International Nurses Day at the Temple Trees today, President Wickremesinghe assured that the country will come out of the long-standing financial crisis within the year. He requests all political parties to support the economic reforms agenda and the laws that will come in the future that will be brought forward by the government.
The 12th of May was proclaimed the International Nurses Day in January 1974, as it is the anniversary of the birth of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. A special ceremony to mark the day was held at the Temple Trees today. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, Minister of Health Dr. Ramesh Patirana and other ministers, as well as many officials from the health sector were present.
අද කරන්නේ දිනාගත් දේ ආරක්ෂා කරගෙන නෙමෙයි අවුල් කර කර අරගල වලට වැඩ වර්ජන වලට අපේ හෙදෙහෙදියන් යොමු කිරීමයි. අපි අරගල කරන්නට ඕනේ. කරු ජනාධිපතිතුමනි අපි රෝගීන්ට අසහනයක් වෙන කිසිම අරගලයක් අපි කරලා නැහැ. අපි අරගල කළා රෝගියත් බලාගෙන. නමුත් දැන් කරන්නේ ඒක නෙමෙයි. ජනාධිපතිතුමා පුටුවේ වාඩි වෙන ගමන් මට මතක් කළා අපි ලැබුණ අවුරුද්ද පඩි වැඩි කරලා දෙන ඔක්කොම කියලා. පඩි වැඩි කිරීමට වඩා මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ අපි යුතුයකම් ඉටු කිරීම කියන එකයි. ඒකයි අපට අවශ්‍යකම තිබෙන්නේ. යුතුයකම් ඉටු වෙන්නේ නැහැ අපෙන් හරියට. යුතුයකම් ඉටු කරලා පඩි වැඩි කරගමු.
රාජකාරී පැහැරහැරීම් පිළිබඳව රාජකාරී වෙලාවේ පෞද්ගලික කටයුතු කිරීම පිළිබඳව ලෙඩ්ඩුන්ගෙන් අල්ලස් දූෂණ හෝ කාගෙන්වත් ඉල්ලීම් පිළිබඳව කිසිම කවර කාලයකවත් හෙද සේවයට චෝදනාවක් එල්ල වෙලා නැහැ කියන කාරණේ මම ඊටාම ගෞරවයෙන් සිහිපත් කරනවා. විශිෂ්ටත්වය ඒකයි.
අපේ බලාපොරොත්තු එන අවුරුද්දේ වර්ධන වේගයක් ඇති වෙයි කියලා 3%කට අවම වශයෙන්. එහෙනම් 3%ක වර්ධන වේගයක් ඇති වෙන අවස්ථාවේදී පඩි වැඩි කිරීම ගැනත් අපේ අවධානය යොමු වෙලා තියෙන රජයේ සේවකයන්ට. අපි බලන්නේ මේ සැරේ මුදල් මුද්‍රණය නොකර අපි කොන්දේසියකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන එකගත්වයකට IMF සංවිධානයයි අපිට ණය දෙන රටවල් එක්ක අපි මුදල් මුද්‍රණය කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. එහෙනම් අපිට තියෙන එකම මාර්ගය ආර්ථික වර්ධන වේගය වැඩි කරන්න. එහෙනම් මේ අවුරුද්ද තුලදී බංකොලොත් භාවයෙන් අපි පිටට එනවා. ඒ ඊළඟට අනික් නීතිය තමයි අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ ආර්ථික පරිවර්තන නීතිය. මේ රටේ ආර්ථිකය අලුත් ආර්ථිකයක් බවට පත් කරන්න. අපනයන පදනම් කරගත්ත ආර්ථිකයක් ඇටට පත් කරන්න. ඒකේ විශේෂයෙන්ම තියෙන්නේ අපි IMF සංවිධානයක එකඟුණ කොන්දේසි IMF සංවිධානයේ පමණක් නෙමෙයි ඒ සමගම අපි අනික් රටවල් එක්ක එකඟුණ කොන්දේසි සියල්ලම නීතියක් හැටියට ගේනවා. අපි දැන් නීතිය ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට. මම හැම පක්ෂයෙන්ම ඉල්ලනවා මේ නීතියට සහයෝගය දෙන්න. ඉදිරියට යන්න. මොකද මේ නීතිය උඩ තමයි අපේ අනාගතය රඳා පවතින්නේ.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa meanwhile says that the current government's plans to sell off certain national assets and state-owned enterprises have given rise to discontent among trade unions, political parties and the general public. Issuing a statement today, the former president said the only manner in which national assets and strategically important state-owned enterprises can be safeguarded is by having a government that takes a pragmatic and non-dogmatic approach to such matters. He also said that it must be realized that the hasty divestiture of state-owned enterprises at the time like this will not produce the best outcomes for the country, and all moves to sell off state assets or enterprises be postponed until a new government is formed after the next presidential election.
Following the economic crisis in 2021, the Sri Lankan government, as per terms agreed with the International Monetary Fund, began the divestiture procedure for state-owned enterprises in order to minimize government expenditure and to achieve targets set by the international lender. Issuing a statement regarding the government's privatization process of state-owned enterprises, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that during his time in the office, the government reacquired some state-owned enterprises which continue to make profits for the state to date. He said under his presidency, the government had a pragmatic approach towards state-owned assets and enterprises, and if a state-owned enterprise was making profits and providing a good service to the public, no reason was arise to privatize it. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa said that even if some state-owned enterprises made losses during his tenure due to a government decision to manage prices, management of the economy resulted in an unbroken 9-year economic boom and had no difficulty in paying off debts or meeting the costs of the subsidies maintained. He said any restructuring of state-owned enterprises should take place with maximum transparency according to a national plan in a manner consistent with national security and in consultation with the employees. However, he said that the private sector participation is needed if there are unutilized government properties or underperforming government enterprises, if a profitable state-owned enterprise needs further investment to add a new feature which cannot be financed by the government, or if an investor is willing to build a new enterprise from scratch, highlighting that some political parties and trade unions having an ideology-driven, dogmatic approach to privatization and seeks to privatize anything and everything that can be privatized, said unions must give proposals to obtain private or foreign participation in a state-owned enterprise on a case-by-case basis and look at the overall benefit of such collaboration in the country. As a measure to ease the widespread discontent over the government's divestiture drive, the former president proposes that all moves to sell off state-owned assets or enterprises be postponed until a new government is formed after the next presidential election, and said that the new government will then be able to deal with state-owned properties and enterprises in accordance with the mandate they obtain at the election.
State Minister of Finance Shehant Semasinga says import restrictions on vehicles will be lifted systematically in the coming year. The State Minister also added that he expects to reach a positive agreement on debt restructuring with bondholders. Meanwhile, speaking to media, parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya Iran Vikramaratne said that parliamentarians must be provided with vehicles to ensure that they provide an efficient service to the general public.
අපිට සහයෝගය දක්වන රටවල්
All nations supporting us as well as bilateral partners have expressed agreements required for debt restructuring. The two parties are in the process of converting these agreements into memoranda of understanding. We believe that we will be able to reach a positive agreement with private bondholders on debt restructuring. The second round of discussions will commence soon. There will be no problematic situation in debt restructuring. This is the program. Required changes can be made through consideration of how far the economy will strengthen and if targets were met.
කොතෙක් දුරට අපි ආර්ථිකයේ ශක්තිමත් වීම සහ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන ඉලක්ක වෙත ගමන් කරාද කියන කාරණාව තුළ
රජය අපි දැක්කා නිවේදන නිකුත් කළා තියෙන මේ රාජ්‍යයේ ඉහළ නිලධාරීන්ට සහ මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ට විතරක් මේ වාහන ආනයනය කරන්න පිරුබදු රහිතව කියලා. එතකොට මේ ජනතාවගෙන් තියෙන වාහන ආනයනය කිරීම බලාපොරොත්තු නැද්ද පුතා?
ඒක වැරදි තොරතුරක්.
This is false information. We have restricted importation of personal vehicles. This will be lifted in the coming year. However, it must be done systematically.
ක්‍රමානුකූල විවෘත වීමක් බවට පත්විය යුතුයි.
Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Eran Wickramaratne, expressed his views on lifting import restrictions on vehicles.
The country is bankrupt. There is a deficit in foreign reserves. Firstly, this must be addressed. However, since there is no sufficient funds to do so, import restrictions on vehicles needed for manufacturing and exports must be lifted first. This will contribute to economic growth. Foreign exchange cannot be wasted on personal vehicles.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මන්ත්‍රීවරුත් විශාල පිරිසක් වාහන බලපත්‍ර තිල්ලලා තියෙනවා කියලා.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරු
Leave vehicle permits aside. Parliamentarians are doing a job. Many do not like to hear this from me as we term it as a service. They should have a vehicle to provide this service efficiently. Provide vehicles to parliamentarians. They have not been given vehicles for 4 years to help them work efficiently.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ට වාහනයක් දෙන්න ඕනේ. මේ අවුරුදු 4ම දීලා නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ කාර්යක්ෂම කරන්න.
Sri Lanka's tourist arrivals surpassed the 800,000 milestone 2 months earlier than last year. According to provisional data released by the Tourism Development Authority, Sri Lanka has welcomed some 22,047 tourists within the first 5 days of May. For the first 5 days of this month, the island nation welcomed a total of 806,698 international visitors to the country. Meanwhile, the number of tourist arrivals for the week has decreased significantly compared to arrivals in April. According to statistics, the largest tourist traffic generator for the month so far is from India, accounting for 20% of total arrivals. Ranking second is the Maldives, contributing to 11%. And a significant number of tourists were also received from the United States, Russia and the United Kingdom. The Department of Meteorology in its weather forecast for tomorrow says showers or thunder showers are likely in most parts of the island after 1 p.m. tomorrow. The Met Department stated that heavy showers exceeded 100 millimeters is likely at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa central and northwestern provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts throughout the course of the day tomorrow. Further, showers are expected from certain areas in the western, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces during the early hours of tomorrow. The Met Department urges the general public to take adequate measures to minimize damages caused by temporarily localized strong winds and lightning due to thunder showers. Meanwhile, today, many areas across the island, including Colombo, Galle, Kurunegala, Anuradhapura, Badulla, Bandarawela, Polonnaruwa and Monaragala experienced heavy rainfall during the course of the afternoon hours. Taking the inclement weather into consideration, the National Hazards Early Warning Center of the Department of Meteorology issued an amber advisory for severe lightning to several parts over the island, including to Colombo. The advisory for severe lightning is in effect until 11:30 p.m. tonight. Leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajith Premadasa, highlights that his party, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, does not support corrupt politics. Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, SP Disanayaka, pointed out that the SLPP and SJB are the two main parties who are likely to win the upcoming presidential election. He went on to note that any winning party at the presidential polls will need support from either of the main parties.
182nd edition of the Sakwala program was held at the Galgamuwa Secondary School in Monragala under the patronage of the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
ඇත්තටම පාලකයෝ කරන්නට ඕන පාසල් ගොඩනගන්නට ඕන.
Leaders must develop schools, the irrigation system and protect hospitals. They are trying to provide bar permits to ministers. They are also trying to bribe ministers as the elections are nearing. However, I can confidently state that my party will not be slaves to money and accept such bribes. We object corrupt politics.
අපේ කණ්ඩායමේ සියල්ලක්ම ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා.
Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Sri Lanka Padujana Peramuna S.B. Disanayaka held a media briefing today.
It is not wrong to systematically support Ranil Wickremesinghe in taking the country forward for another 6 years. It is Ranil Wickremesinghe who stepped forward to save the country, its economy, the party and us. Two main parties hold the possibility of claiming victory in the presidential election. One is the SLPP while the other is the SJB. The JVP has a higher possibility. However, they will not win. Whoever wins will need support from one of these main parties.
Taking you to news in brief tonight, 3 individuals who broke into a scrap metal recycling centre in Padukka has attacked the shopkeeper with a sharp weapon and fled the scene with a necklace and nearly 300,000 rupees. The Padukka police launched an investigation into the incident while the injured businesswoman was admitted to the Homagama Base Hospital for treatment. With that, here's a look at other stories across Sri Lanka in brief.
An individual engaged in the distribution of narcotic substances of high dosage was arrested in Ragama. The Ragama police were able to seize close to 1,000 narcotic pills. A 15-year-old engaged in a series of thefts, including thieving 3-wheelers, was arrested while he was travelling in a 3-wheeler he had stolen. The arrest was made in Moratua after finding 5,200 milligrams of crystal methamphetamine in the possession of the suspect, who was the driver of the 3-wheeler. A long interrogation uncovered a cassette player and 2 smartphones stolen from 3 houses in the Egoda Oyana police domain. The Police Special Task Force, together with the Sri Lanka Navy, arrested an individual involved in illegal drug trafficking of narcotic pills used in high dosages without the recommendation of a specialist in Batiklo. The suspect in question is a 32-year-old resident of Batiklo who had 1,440 narcotic capsules in his possession and was transporting them in a car to be distributed to traffickers at the time of the arrest.
Welcome back to the news. State Minister of Investment Dilum Amanugama revealed that the duty-free shopping complex at the Colombo Port City is to open in June this year. The shopping complex is built in collaboration with China Duty Free International Limited. The State Minister said cabinet approval for the project is expected soon and the gazetted decision will be published before its opening.
China Duty Free.
We have signed an agreement with China Duty Free. For now, the unconfirmed date of the opening of the duty-free complex in Colombo Port City is June 14. We are doing this in collaborating with China Duty Free firm. Construction of the complex is ongoing at the moment. We have presented the cabinet paper for approval and we expect to get permission for it, and we expect to gazette it before June 14. We will then be able to initiate operations as planned.
Sri Lanka's average tea prices rose at the first auction in May, continuing the upward trend for the third consecutive week. Data published by Ceylon Tea Brokers showed the national weekly sale average increased by 11.98 rupees to 1,261.40 a kilogram this week from 1,249.42 a week ago. According to data, the weekly average of Sri Lanka's highest priced tea, the low growns, rose by 6 rupees and 48 cents and 1,350 rupees and 83 cents. The medium grown average rose by 8 rupees and 28 cents to 1,084 rupees and 74 cents. Meanwhile, the high grown tea's weekly average rose by 33 rupees and 97 cents to 1,181 rupees and 48 cents a kilogram. Auction offerings recorded a fairly significant decline and totaled 4.9 million kilograms. Brokers said that there was improved demand and an increased trend in prices for most teas on offer, perhaps triggered by the lower volume on offer in the backdrop of urgent shipments. Taking you to our corporate news segment, Lanka Rating Agency Limited assigned an entity rating of A to First Capital Treasuries PLC and an issue rating of A- to the company's debentures with a positive outlook replacing the previous stable outlook. Some ratings announced are coming up in our corporate segment up next.
Lanka Rating Agency Limited has assigned an entity rating of A to First Capital Treasuries plc. In its corporate disclosure, the company further stated that an issue rating of A- was also assigned to the debentures of the company with a positive outlook, replacing the previous stable outlook. The rating reflects the company's strong position in the primary dealer market, significant increase in profitability and robust capitalization of the company. In the meantime, Lanka Rating Agency Limited placed the debt instrument rating of SoftLogic Capital plc listed senior unsecured redeemable debenture of 1.5 billion rupees, a BBB negative, and the rating remains on rating watch negative. This signifies the financial profile of the company as the parent entity SoftLogic Holdings plc's financial profile has come under duress due to leveraging coupled with a delay in the release of financial statements. Additionally, during the period under review, the company faced challenges on dual fronts. Also in corporate news, Fitch Rating Lanka Limited affirmed Sierra Cables plc's national long-term rating at A positive with a stable outlook. This reflects the company's small operating scale and exposure to cyclical end markets as well as foreign currency risk mitigated by its position in the domestic cable industry. Further, Fitch Ratings Lanka stated that the stable outlook reflects that Sierra will be able to maintain adequate financial metrics in the next 12 months.
Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. We'll see you again tomorrow with the very latest. I'm Indivara Yamuatta. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.